With Final Fantasy 15 less than a month away, I figured it would be a good time to talk about the series. And by the series, I mean the spin-off game for the PSP called Dissidia Final Fantasy. And by that, I mean the second one. If you're not familiar with the Final Fantasy games, it's a JRPG where you go around the world, make friends, and save the world from some big bad evil who's trying to do bad things in various ways. For the most part, they're all very good games and feature some of my favorite characters and well-written villains, interesting concepts, and worlds full of conflict that truly feel alive. And what better way to celebrate this idea than with a 1v1 fighting game? I mean, it worked for Nintendo. Dissidia Final Fantasy is Square Enix's Super Smash Bros. That's not a bad thing. I love Smash, and I love Dissidia. So let's take a closer look and see what we've got. At its core, this is a fighting game. However, since it's based on Final Fantasy, it still has a lot of RPG elements all over the place, while still maintaining staples to the fighting genre, such as a large variety of stages to fight on, each befitting a certain kind of play, a large cast of characters, each with their own unique playstyle, and rules you can set to mix up the gameplay however you see fit. Speaking of characters, let's go over them all real quick. Lightning shift stance is similar to how paradigm shifts work in Final Fantasy 13. Fun attacks with various weapon types that all have certain advantages over others, like when you use guns and explosives. Unit summons espers or whatever they're called in Final Fantasy X. Kain uses a point and stick and excels at chasing enemies after a combo. Diva can cancel attacks in the first few frames and fade her enemies into guarding and then attack during the end lag. Wherever Light is an all-around good character who does well in both in the air and on the ground. Fiona has a good mix of short-range and long-range attacks that can combo into HP attacks along with a counter, but his air game is non-existent. Onion Knight excels in a lot of small hits and does really fast. Cecil can shift between his light and dark forms, each side having a different moveset. Bartz mimics moves that other characters have and matches them together. Terra shoots lasers and stuff like mages typically do, hard to confirm damage sometimes. Cloud is another all-around character with HP combos both on the ground and the air, but his attacks are kinda slow. Squall does a lot of brave damage, but his HP attacks are hard to confirm without the help from assists. Zidane is fast and has a very versatile kit with combos into HP attacks, long-range attacks, and mobility. Tease is basically the same as Zidane, fast and mobile. Garland is a powerhouse that rushes you down to sheer power. The Empress has traps around the stage and shoots you with magic balls. Cloud Darkness has a lot of particle beam moves that look pretty cool. Golbez is weird and I don't like him. The perfect access is literally untouchable due to his Omni Shield. Kefka uses really weird magic, which perfectly captures his character. Sephiroth is enemies, but ultimately she uses long-range attacks and camps you like Bear Grylls in the woods. There's no running from this pain. Kuji uses Holy and Flare in really cool ways. Jack is a timing-based character whose combos depend on when you press the buttons. Santoro uses magic and long-range attacks that nobody else can use like poison and stuns. Gabba charges the EX meter and only when he's in EX mode is he an actual threat. Prish has a lot of complex combos I haven't bothered to learn. Gilgamesh uses blue magic from Final Fantasy V and other stuff that related to his characters such as Excalibur. Pharaoh Chaos is basically Giga Bowser. There is a huge collection of equipment ranging from swords to spears, guns, grappling weapons. They all give slightly different bonuses and effects, allowing you to fine-tune each character to how you want them to play. On top of equipment, each character can equip a large variety of accessories, further increasing the amount of customization you have with each character. Plus, each character gets to equip one summon to use in battle, which can do things from increasing your power to decreasing the enemy's power to lol, so random. Plus, each character gets to choose any other character to be an assist character that they can call upon at any moment to extend combos, punish dodges or blocks, or just plain deal some damage. So just like a lot of the main series games, there's a lot of options here, and it's up to you to figure out which ones you like the best. Or look it up online by players way better than you, that works too. Each character has a selection of abilities they can equip that will act as their attacks, and since you can only equip 3 at a time, you'll need to decide which attacks you want to use. Speaking of attacks, there are 2 kinds of attacks, Bravery and HP. Bravery attacks tend to be faster, however only deal damage to the enemy's bravery. Bravery in this game determines how much damage you do when you do an HP attack. As you deal bravery damage, the enemy's bravery goes down, and your bravery goes up. When either player's bravery hits 0, the attacker gets a large boost to their bravery, while the one who got broken has to wait for their bravery to recover. For HP attacks, the damage you do is based on your current bravery, and after you land the HP attack, your bravery goes down to 0 for a moment, and if you aren't careful, they can retaliate and immediately break you while you're still recovering. Needless to say, once your HP hits 0, you die and you lose the match. At any point in the match, you can use a summon, which all have specific effects depending on what summon you use, and the descriptions are pretty straightforward. Throughout the battle, blue EX cores will spawn, and whoever picks it up first will get a boost to their EX gauge, and when the EX gauge is full, you get to transform into your EX mode, with each character having their own special abilities, passive boosts, and effects to each one. And if you land an HP attack while in EX mode, you can do an EX burst, which deals a decent amount of HP damage depending on which character you use. It varies by character, your mileage may vary. But this immediately drains the EX gauge, so you need to decide whether to use it for the burst, or to skip the burst and to keep the passive effects. So that's cool and all, but all fighting games have modes where you can just fight stuff. What makes Dissidia special? Well, that would be the story modes. Duodecim has 3 different story modes. Main Scenario 0, Main Scenario 12, and Main Scenario 13. Main Scenario 13 is a storyline from the first game, and it comes back in this one too. It tells the story of each main character from the first 10 games and their hunts for the crystals. Along the way, you meet allies and enemies alike, do battle, and talk about story things. Don't be mistaken, the story is not very well written. There's a lot of thrown around exposition, questions, and certain words just repeated ad nauseum. But remember that this is a fighting game. It doesn't need a heart-wrenching story with tragedy at every turn. I liken the story modes in this game to the Subspace Emissary and Brawl. Didn't really need to be there, but it was fun to play and see the characters interact with each other rather than just killing each other. But the main feature of Duodecim is Main Scenario 12, which focuses on the 6 new characters: Lightning, Vaughn, Laguna, Yuna, Kain, and Tifa. Personally, I think Scenario 12 is better written than 13. 13 was very black and white, and 12 has a lot of gray thrown in, which makes the story a lot more interesting. I'd also like to point out that the FMV cutscenes in this game are really, really good, especially for the PSP. Some of the best I have seen on this console yet. It starts off with Lightning giving us some general backstory. Cosmos, the goddess of order, brought the people here to receive her power, which will eventually give them the power to defeat Chaos, the god of discord. Through battle, the power will manifest itself into a crystal, which will help them defeat evil, or something. Lightning and the gang eventually meet some weird crystal enemies that kinda look like themselves, and it's revealed that they're mannequins. Pawns created for both sides of the conflict to use. While discussing the mannequins, they meet up with Kuja and Kefka. I'm just gonna outright say right now that Kefka is the best character in this game. His design is perfect. His voice, his acting is spot on, and even his moveset is a perfect representation of his utter madness.
You're out of steam? Oh, you poor dears. I mean, turn around! You still have more mannequins waiting for a chance to play! Well, Coochie-Coo, this is your chance to shine!
Kuja fights Lightning, Kuja loses, and Kefka does ridiculous Kefka stuff and leaves. Lightning eventually meets up with Kain and an injured Bartz, but plot twist, Kain is evil. Why does that sound familiar? After fighting Kain, Exeth and Garland show up long enough to distract Lightning so that Kain can escape with Bartz's body. On to Chapter 2, we control Vaughn, who has split from the rest of the group after running away from Kuja and Kefka. Vaughn meets up with an evil Terra and beats her up, and she flies off. You later find Kefka scolding Terra for not wanting to destroy everything, and Vaughn, being the total lady killer he is, comes to the rescue.
You're about to learn why oppose rhymes with dispose!
Always happy to take out the trash.
Terra explains that she doesn't want to fight anymore, and Vaughn says she should lay low and find someplace safe until the fighting is over. Laguna also got separated from the group, but finds Vaughn after he's dealt with Terra. Laguna ends up meeting Cloud of Darkness, and
I was just admiring your appearance. Not any particular part of your appearance, but leg cramp.
Unbelievable.
Cloud of Darkness tells Laguna that the mannequins all stem from a portal, and the only way to stop the massive influx of mannequins is to close that portal. And Laguna heads off to find the rest of the portal and tell them what's up. Meanwhile, Yuna and Jekt are cornered with mannequins at every turn and are looking to make it back to the sanctuary where Cosmos is. She gets separated from Jekt for some reason, and happens across Tidus, who doesn't seem to recognize her, and she chases after him. Yuna eventually meets up with Jekt and Tidus arguing, and Yuna tries to make Tidus remember who they are. The Emperor, who I will now refer to as Mateus, shows up and tries to kill Yuna, but Tidus saves her and takes a flare right to the back. Turns out Jekt gave his strength to Tidus to save his life, but because of that, Jekt is now an empty vessel to be brainwashed and used for later. Laguna and Vaughn find Yuna as she's trying to think of what to do and fills them in on what happened. Going back to Lightning for a moment, she makes it back to the sanctuary and tells Cosmos about Kain, and while doing typical Lightning rants, the Warrior of Light gets angry and the two of them fight. The Warrior of Light reveals that he and Kain have yielded, since no matter how many mannequins they kill, there will always be more. And even if they fight until the last ounce of strength, there will always be more, making it impossible to win. Kain explains that the conflict is a vicious cycle. You fight, you die, you get revived, and you fight again. By killing their allies, they can be saved and brought back for the next cycle with greater strength than before, giving them a chance in the future. During this time, Laguna, Vaughn, and Yuna make it back to the sanctuary, and Laguna tells the group about the mannequin portal, and the party groups up and heads off to close the portal. And lastly, we meet Tifa, who, surprise surprise, got separated from the main group. Ultimation shows up, nearly kills Tifa, but Kain comes and saves the day. What a hero. Turns out Zidane was here too, but Kane got to him first. That's 3 now. Then Kane zooms right on out of there. Tifa chases after Kane and eventually finds him injured. Kane tells her to run off since mannequins will be swarming any second, but Tifa uses her potion and forces Kane to stick around. In the final chapter, Kane and Tifa meet up with the rest of the group, who are on their way to stop the mannequins. Along their way, Exeth and Golbez show up and say some things.
The mannequins march on Cosmos' throne.
And since Kane killed everyone else, only Warrior of Light is there to defend against the massive horde. That plan kinda backfired, didn't it? Probably should've thought of that, Kane. Kane stays to hold back Exeth and Golbez while the rest of the crew continue on to close the portal. A bunch of fighting and character development happens, and they finally make it to the portal where they're greeted by a slew of Chaos's warriors. Vaughn fights Kefka, Tifa fights Ultimecia, Yuna fights Mateus, Laguna fights Cloud of Darkness, and Lightning fights Garland. They disappear, leaving you to deal with the mannequins. And after a small pep talk and Kane showing up, they charge into the rift to stop the mannequins. Meanwhile, a massive mannequin army is at the sanctuary, ready to kill them all, and Warrior of Light steps up to the challenge. As Lightning and company are fighting the mannequins of the portal, Warrior of Light is fighting them at the sanctuary, and all seems lost. Cosmos does a thing and seemingly saves the Warrior of Light, as they all vanish and are ready to be reborn for the next cycle. Cosmos, rather than protecting herself to ensure the world doesn't get destroyed, sacrifices herself to save her warriors, and thus the entire world becomes overrun by chaos. But Shinryu comes, restores them all in order for the cycle to continue. All of them except for Lightning and crew. Because they were killed by mannequins, they didn't get revived by Shinryu at the end, and it's not really explained why. Warrior of Light and Terra were injured by the mannequins, but the cycle ended prematurely by Cosmos before they were actually killed. This means that in the 13th cycle, the first game, they won't be there. It's really loose writing, but I do understand that they had to write them out somehow. When Mateus captured an empty Jekt back in Yuna's story, that was setting up Jekt to be a warrior of chaos in the 13th cycle. And Vaughn saving Terra from Kefka set her up as a warrior of Cosmos. Same for Tidus. There's actually a lot of interesting backstory and lore to this game, ranging from some characters being in the war longer than others due to how much they remember of their past lives, some characters simply being revived too many times to be revived again, like Prish and Gilgamesh, or Shantoto and Gabrynth, who just refused to participate in the war since the end of the first cycle. All in all, the story has a lot of ideas, and while it certainly has its shoehorns, MacGuffins, and holes, it does have something to offer. Eventually you can unlock Scenario 0, which contains much of this game's endgame content. This is mostly a sandbox where you get to go through more gateways with any selection of characters you want, fight mannequins, gather a little backstory on how the cycle works if you want, but unlike Scenario 12 or 13, there isn't a lot of story here, and that's not really the purpose of Scenario 0. And a lot of the game's best weapons, armor, and accessories can only be obtained with materials you can get here. And you'll be farming a lot if you want every ultimate weapon for each character and each piece of Lufenian equipment. And in the highest level gateways, the game just flat out cheats. A lot of characters become completely unviable because the game reads your inputs and will always dodge attacks, which means only characters with fast brave to HP combos can even maybe work in these gateways. There's no clever mind games, there's no hard reads, there's no big combos, there's no reaction tech chases. There is spamming whatever move you have that leads into an HP attack until it finally hits, and do that 6 or 7 more times. Every single fight. At the very end of the very last gateway lies Duodecim's ultimate challenge. A level 130 Feral Chaos boasting a massive 125,000 HP. For comparison, on average, you're going to have 9,500 to about 11,000 HP, depending on what items and accessories you have equipped, hardly ever breaching past 12,000. The maximum damage you can do in one hit is 9,999. But you have 5 characters to work with, and together you can take down the Lord of Chaos. Using an EI strike build to instantly break him is a pretty good strategy that I didn't use while recording my footage. Definitely don't use a side-by-side build like I did, you never get the good assists in gateways. And in case you're wondering, no. Not even close. Though to be fair, I wasn't trying as hard as I could have. It was like 3 hours into my recording session. I had to re-record half of it because my monitor kept crashing and ruining the footage. And then I had to mess with settings because some of it was all artifacty and gross, and I had to redo more footage because I didn't turn off the music so I could put my own music over it in editing so the music didn't change every 20 seconds, it would be jarring as hell. One really cool feature I like to talk about is the replay system. After any match, you can record a replay, and then from the creation menu you can rewatch battles you've recorded and even edit in fancy camera angles if you're into that kind of thing. And you can even export it to an AVI right from your PSP to share it to random people you happen across on YouTube. In fact, I recently found a stash of these that I found on my hard drive back from 2012. Now, if PvE content doesn't interest you, there's always PvP. There are some online communities that play Duodecim at a competitive level, and it's really opened my eyes to see this game at this kind of level. Accessories I once thought were useless are actually top tier and used on almost every single build. And accessories I once thought were OP are largely unused. Characters I once thought were trash are actually top tier, and characters I thought would do well in a competitive setting aren't all that hot. No matter what game it is, I always enjoy trying to find the game at the highest level and see what kind of strategies people employ and try to learn something about it. And I did. While reading up competitive character guides, I figured out that you can do the Lance combo from Furiant's moves even if you miss. It's so simple, but I seriously never knew that before, and Furiant is one of my most played characters. And that was Dissidia Duodecim, one of my all-time favorite Final Fantasy spin-off games, and one of my favorites on the PSP as well. One thing I did not mention, however, is that the soundtrack is incredible. Uematsu is a complete god at what he does, and some of the remixes they've done specifically for Duodecim are absolutely fantastic. I've been throwing them in all throughout this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And that's the end of the video. I don't know how to end these things. This is the Sentinel Complex. There are more Phalanx ninjas, weird-looking R2-D2s, and flying sentries. This level's gimmick is that you have to destroy these monsters inside Ganon's castle. And you can now see that Ganondorf built his castle on a throne of lies. Oh man, I have to go move all my stuff back where it belongs. This is fun.